Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Can you hear? I hope everyone there. Got to make sure I can be heard. Good morning. My name is Indra Mangal, and I work in the education department at the Asian Art Museum. And on behalf of the museum, we want to welcome everyone to today's meditation program with San Francisco Zen Center. I will introduce our teacher in a few moments. I wanted to first apologize to everyone that I caused some chaos in sending out the notice that this started at 10 a.m. There's some issues with when I schedule the timing and send it out. So I just wanted to apologize for that snafu. And John, I see you're in here, so I'm glad you made it. And before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping and acknowledgements. The first is that our staff really wants to deeply acknowledge that the Asian Art Museum is located on the ancestral home of the Ohlone peoples who stewarded the land for generations. And we pay respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging, for they hold the memories, traditions, and cultures of their people across the nation. We extend our respect to the Ohlone and Coastal Miwok, as well as other indigenous people who are present. Please note that this program is being recorded and will be up on our YouTube station in a few days, so you can revisit this and all of our virtual programs as many times as you like. Really exciting news is that the museum is reopening. We're thrilled. We've already sold hundreds and hundreds of tickets. The museum opens to members October 1st and 2nd. You can always become a member, and to the public on October 3rd. And we have all kinds of safety precautions in place to keep you safe and help you enjoy your visit. So please go to our website. You can purchase tickets, and if we're sold out, check back for the next day. Our new closed days are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's brand new. So on to talking about the meditation session today. And I want to remind you that we're doing these once a month. And we now have them scheduled once a month through next June. Starting in January, they will be the second Saturday of every month. But our next meditation session is October 17th. And we're really pleased to have joining us again, Dan Zigmond. He is a Zen teacher living in Menlo Park. He is taught at the San Francisco Zen Center, Ikoji Zen Center, and other temples in the Bay Area and beyond. He's also a data scientist who's worked at several local tech companies, including Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Google. And he recently published a book on mindfulness, meditation, and work called Buddha's Office, The Ancient Art of Waking Up While Working Well. I have to get that book. Anyway, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dan. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I also wanted to acknowledge that this is a sad morning for many people with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg last night, and so certainly I am participating here with a heavier heart, and I imagine many others are as well, as our whole country mourns her loss. And of course, this is a difficult time in so many ways, and difficult time to find the space for stillness and meditation. But I think finding that space is still necessary. And so I'm so touched that so many of you have found your way to join us this morning and will be sitting with us. As Indra mentioned, we do these monthly, We, in the past, have done them actually in the Asian Art Museum, in some of the galleries. You see, I have an image of one of those galleries behind me. And I do hope we can return and do them in person again one day. It is very special to sit surrounded by the ancient Buddhas that are collected at the Asian Art Museum. A wonderful experience. But of course, one of the advantages of doing these virtually is that we can have many, many more people participate than would fit into one of these galleries, 10 times more at least. And so it's really quite special to be able to sit here this morning with all of you. The style of meditation that we'll be practicing together is what we call Zen meditation. Zen is a branch of Buddhism that developed in China and then was later carried from China to Korea, Vietnam, and Japan. And it was a teacher from Japan who brought this style here to San Francisco, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, who founded the San Francisco Zen Center, where many American Zen teachers have practiced over the decades. Buddhism, of course, originated in India with the historical Buddha. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about that and then talk a little bit about why this practice of meditation developed the way it has. So Buddha himself was born as a prince in India, led a very, very sheltered life. His parents pampered him and tried to shelter him from all forms of suffering. And like many parents, you know, they had his best interests at heart, but it didn't quite work out. And as he developed into a young man, he began to feel that there was something more to life than just living in a pleasure palace as he was. And so he ran away and began wandering through India, practicing all kinds of austere forms of yoga, fasting, to see if he could find the answer to life's great questions. He didn't find that those practices were helping him either. He felt that by sort of beating himself up in that way, he was not getting any closer to the truth than he had been when he was indulging in all kinds of sensual pleasures. And so he decided to give up that life as well. And he found himself a quiet spot under what we now call the Bodhi tree and just sat still. And he vowed to just sit there in meditation until he had finally found his answers. He sat all night, and when the morning star rose, he had his awakening and became what we now call the Buddha, the awakened one. So meditation has been at the heart of Buddhist practice from the very beginning, and was carried along with Buddhist teachings throughout Asia, and then eventually here to America. Zen practice is really quite straightforward. It's not a complicated or tricky practice, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Today we'll just do two quite short meditation sessions, which I think anyone can do, whether you've meditated many times before or whether this is your very first time. As I said, the traditional Zen forms are fairly simple. So we sit, you can sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair. The traditional posture, which you can see behind me, the Buddha demonstrating, is to sit cross-legged in what we call the lotus posture. And certainly if you are able to, perhaps either because you've been doing meditation before or you've been practicing yoga, that's a wonderful and very stable posture in which to sit. But you can also sit in what's called the half lotus. You can kneel, or you can sit at a chair. Most important thing is to try to sit upright with your shoulders back, your back straight, in such a way that you feel fully supported. Your spine upright. They say you should feel as if your head is being gently lifted towards the ceiling, so that there's just that little bit of space between each vertebra. If you're on a chair, you should try to have your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting cross-legged, to have your knees on the floor. Again, to create a very stable platform where you can sit still. The traditional Zen form is to have our hands in our lap in a mudra, sort of like this, is a circle. To form that circle, you put your left hand on your right palm, touch your thumbs together, and then have your hands just rest very gently on your lap, your shoulders relaxed. In other traditions, they hold their hands differently, but the key is to keep your shoulders relaxed, your hands still and stable. In Zen, we typically sit facing a wall, usually with our eyes sort of half closed, just our gaze cast down slightly in front of us. I do find in these Zoom meditations where people are often sitting facing a computer, it can be easier to sit with your eyes closed, so you're not distracted by anything that might be happening on your screen. And of course, you should set your phones or other devices away where they won't distract you either. So that brings us to the question of what you should do while you're sitting in this stable posture, your eyes half closed or perhaps fully closed. And the answer is that we don't really try to do anything. We try to just focus on this moment, to just be fully present right now. Often in order to do that, it's easiest if we start by giving our full attention to our breathing. And so to be fully mindful of each in-breath and each out-breath. Each in-breath and each out-breath. Particularly when we're just starting out, it's often helpful to narrate this breathing as a way of further focusing our minds. And so with each in-breath, you can say to yourself, I am breathing in. And with each out-breath, say to yourself, I am breathing out. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. And we just continue that. At first for 10 minutes, then we'll take a little break. I'll speak just for a few minutes in between. And then we'll sit again for 15 minutes. And then at the very end, I'll take questions. You can put those questions in the Q&A or the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. And so with that, I think I'd like us all to get started. So please find yourself a comfortable position. Put away your phones or other devices. Sit as upright as you can. I'll ring a bell. You can see the bell here. I'll ring this bell 3 times for us to start. When you hear the bell, just listen to the sound. Listen to the sound until you can't hear it any longer. And then just bring your attention to your breathing, as I just discussed. Giving your full attention to each in-breath and each out-breath. I'll ring the bell once at the end. That'll be the sign that our session is complete. Zen meditation is traditionally done in complete silence, but I'll probably pop in once or twice during the session just to give you a reminder of the forms, to encourage you to be fully present. And so with that, I'll get us started. Now bring your full attention to your breathing, giving your full attention to each in-breath and each out-breath, each in-breath and each out-breath, in-breath, out-breath. Thoughts arise while you're sitting. That's okay. Let them arise. Notice these thoughts without grasping them. Notice them and let them go. Let the thoughts be a reminder to bring your attention back to the next in-breath and the next out-breath. The next in-breath, the next out-breath. In a moment, I'll ring the bell to end our session. When you hear the sound of the bell, again, listen to the bell. Listen to it until you can't hear it any longer. Then take one more in-breath, one more out-breath, and we'll be done. One more in-breath, One more out breath. And open your eyes. Well, I hope that felt a little calming, settling. If that was your first time meditating, then congratulations on completing your first meditation session. If you've meditated many times before, thank you very much for joining us, meditating together with us today. We'll sit one more time in just a few minutes, but if you need to, this would be a good time to stretch. If your legs are a little sore, if your knees hurt, if you're sitting in the half lotus position, sometimes it's nice to switch your legs up in between these sessions. If your back is a little stiff, you might stretch a little bit. Stretch out your shoulders, your arms. Again, in this next session, we'll be mostly silent, but I'll speak up a few times just to remind you of the form, hopefully help you stay focused and stay present. Meditation and mindfulness is a skill like any other, but we don't practice it just to become good at meditating. We practice so that we can bring that mindfulness into our daily life. It's a little like learning to drive in an empty parking lot. You do that because there's fewer distractions, just as sitting perhaps alone in a room or in a group that's silent and still is easier than being mindful in a crowded office, crowded store, out in the world. So it helps us develop that skill, that muscle, that hopefully we can then take with us as we venture out of the parking lot and into the world. I see someone asked a quick question of whether you should open your mouth when you're breathing out. And certainly some people do that. In Zen, we have no particular tradition around breathing out or in through our mouth. I typically breathe in and out through my nose. But the most important thing is to find a way of sitting and breathing that feels comfortable and natural to you, so that you can find that stillness. So with that, I'll start the second session. Again, I'll ring the bell 3 times for us to start. And again, when you hear the sound of the bell, just listen to the sound. Listen to it until you can't hear it any longer. And then bring your attention to your breathing, and we'll carry on from there. Now bring your full attention to your breathing. Again, it might help to narrate your breathing, to say to yourself with each in-breath, I am breathing in. With each out-breath, I am breathing out. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. You don't need to match your breathing to my breathing or to breathe in any special way. Just notice your breathing exactly as it is. Just notice yourself sitting and breathing right now, in this moment, giving your full attention to each in-breath and each out-breath. Each in-breath and each out-breath. In these last few minutes, try to expand your awareness to encompass the physical sensation of sitting and breathing. Notice the physical sensation of your body sitting on the floor, on a cushion, or in a chair. Notice the physical sensation of the air as it enters your lips or nose. Notice the physical sensation of the air as it leaves your lips or nose. Notice the physical sensation of your chest rising and falling. Notice the physical sensation of even your clothes against your skin as they perhaps get a little tighter with each in-breath and fall a little looser with each out-breath. When you hear the sound of the bell to end our session, listen to the sound. Be fully present with that sound. Because if you can be fully present in this moment, you can be fully present in the next moment, in the moment after that, in the moment after that, and in every moment. And being fully present, giving your full attention to every moment is what it means to be fully awake and fully alive. One more in breath. One more out breath. And open your eyes. Well, thank you very much for joining us in that second sitting. I hope you found some stillness there. For the next 15 minutes, I'll take your questions, which you can put in the Q&A. Do my best to get through as many of them as I can. I see we have some already. I see from Carol, she asks, what's the difference between Zen meditation and mindfulness meditation? You know, the short answer is there isn't much difference. I think of Zen meditation as a form of mindfulness meditation. Sometimes when people use the term mindfulness meditation, they're referring to what's often called insight or vipassana meditation, which is a style of meditation that developed in Southeast Asia, in Burma, Thailand, Laos. I have practiced that form as well. I lived for a brief time in a temple in Thailand. Insight meditation typically involves some other practices, sometimes things like body scans, paying attention to different parts of your body. But I tend to feel that you should just find a form of meditation that feels natural to you. The most important thing really is to just find the space in your life to meditate regularly each day. To me, that's much more important than what style of meditation, even how long you meditate. And so I hope you will try to find some time in your day to sit as we did, even for as little as 10 minutes. Nancy asks, if you start feeling stiffness and pain during the session while sitting with legs crossed, is it okay to modify how we're sitting in order to relieve the stiffness and pain? Yes, I think it is. You know, a certain amount of discomfort is not unusual. And sometimes if you just pay attention to that discomfort, be mindful of that feeling, you'll find that it passes. But certainly if you're having real pain, it's fine to change your position, to shift your legs a little bit. In some traditions, they're more strict about these things, but I'm not strict myself, and I do think the goal is not, or the idea is not for you to have any pain while you're sitting. Sometimes stretching before and after sitting helps us loosen our legs. Of course, in many parts of Asia, people are used to sitting on the floor, kneeling or cross-legged, and so it's not a particularly awkward or uncomfortable position. It probably was not an awkward or uncomfortable position for Buddha himself. So I don't think it's necessary for it to be awkward or uncomfortable. And if sitting on the floor is simply too much for you, sitting on a chair is absolutely fine. Again, I'm much more concerned that you find some time to sit each day than exactly how you arrange yourself in that sitting. Elaine asks if you should have the tongue on the roof of the mouth. That is traditional, but again, I don't worry too much about those forms. I think you should find a way of sitting and breathing that is comfortable for you. Is it okay to use a mantra? Asha asks. She also asked, how is this technique different from Vipassana? I think I spoke about that already. In Zen, we don't typically use a mantra. There is a practice within Zen called koan practice, where a teacher would give you a question to meditate on, which is a little bit similar to a mantra practice. But in the Soto Zen tradition from Japan that I practice, we often don't use a koan either. We simply sit, what's sometimes called in Japanese shikantaza, or in English just sitting, and just practice that way. Asha also asked if it's okay to combine techniques. It's certainly okay with me. I think, again, the most important thing is you find a technique that works for you, and that you try to practice it as regularly as you can. Peggy asks, does the length of, I think she means meditation, matter? I get that question a lot. I'm told that His Holiness the Dalai Lama still meditates for several hours a day, and that's after having done that pretty much every day for most of his, I think at this point, over 80 years. So he must think that that meditating for such a long period is still important for him. At the same time, I do think that meditating even for 10 minutes can be very valuable and can help you find some stillness and some calm. So again, it's much more important that you find a practice and a routine that you can stick to. If you're able to meditate for 20 minutes, half an hour, even an hour each day, that's wonderful. But I'd much rather that you meditated every day for 10 minutes than made plans to meditate for an hour, but never actually found that time. So please find a period of time that works for you. If you were to go to the San Francisco Zen Center when they are able to open again, we typically do 40-minute sessions when we meditate together. But again, I think you should find a length of time that works for you. Nancy asks, are there other ways that can help with distraction during meditation besides focusing on the breath? I touched on this a little bit. I often feel focusing on the physical sensation of sitting can be very helpful. Noticing each point at which your body is touching the chair or ground, noticing the sensation of the air as it enters and leaves your body, the subtle movements even of your shoulders and arms with each breath. Meditation is a physical practice as well as a mental practice. It's something that we do. And so that mindfulness of our bodies in meditation, I think, can also be helpful in keeping us fully grounded and fully present. Catherine asks, is meditation good for kids? I think it is. I have meditated with my kids. My kids aren't kids anymore. They're both entering adulthood. But I think kids can get a lot out of meditation. It's, of course, every child is different, just as every adult is different. So some children don't really take to meditation until they're teenagers and can have a little bit more kind of awareness of themselves and what they're doing. But I've done meditation with kids in middle school and even younger than that, and I think they can get a lot out of it. One of the anonymous attendees asks, what's the difference between the full lotus and the half lotus? I guess I should have explained that. In the full lotus, you can't see my legs, so I can't easily demonstrate, but each leg is kind of on the opposite thigh. And so, which is a very stable position. In the half lotus, you only do that with one of your legs and you tuck the other leg underneath, or the other foot underneath the opposite thigh. So in the full lotus, each foot is on the opposite thigh, and the half lotus, only one foot rests on the opposite thigh and the other one is tucked under. So that's the difference. And many people find that's a little less of a stretch for them than the full lotus position. Another anonymous question, is it normal to be yawning and getting watery eye during meditation? All sorts of things are normal. If you haven't experienced meditation very much in the past, or if you're feeling particularly sleepy, yawning is quite common. I think people have different reactions to meditation. I often find that meditation, at least when I'm finished meditating, it wakes me up. When I've lived at meditation centers like Zen Center, sometimes you have to wake up quite early to meditate because of the Buddha's experience meditating on the site of the morning star. It's become traditional to meditate at or before dawn in meditation centers. So sometimes I'll go to meditation expecting, okay, I'm going to go there and sit. When I'm done, I'll go back to sleep and catch up on my sleep. But I find that when I'm done sitting, I'm actually now wide awake, that it has woken me up. Other people find that it is so relaxing that they will even fall asleep during meditation. So different people react differently, but certainly yawning is not uncommon. And just if you find that happening, notice that that's happening. Be mindful and present with that experience, um, and then try to return your attention to that moment. Uh, in the chat, I see a few people have asked questions there. Sabrina asks, why is it important to sit up versus lying down? Some people do meditate lying down. I myself find that I often do get quite sleepy if I meditate lying down. In fact, if I'm having trouble sleeping at night, sometimes I'll do a little meditation just as I'm lying in bed, and I find that helps me fall asleep. There was a time when I was living at the San Francisco Zen Center when I was having a lot of pain in my back, and so I meditated lying down in a few of the periods, and I found that I fell asleep. It was hard for me to sort of stay present and pay attention when I was lying down. But other people do find that that works for them, and that's a more comfortable position for their bodies. And so it certainly it can work for people. Let's see. Ella asks, is it good to follow a fully guided meditation when one is a beginner? If so, any recommendations? So in the Zen tradition, we don't really do guided meditation. Even the little bit of guidance that I gave today would be unusual at a Zen temple. But some people find that very helpful. And certainly there are many sources of guided meditation that you can find. There are apps for your phone like Insight Timer, Calm, and Headspace that have many guided meditations. You can find guided meditations on YouTube. There are many sources of guided meditations, and some people do find them very helpful. Asha asks, how is your experience in Thailand? How does one go about doing this? That may be a longer question than I can cover here. I had a very good experience in Thailand. There are many temples in Thailand now that welcome foreigners to come and practice. And again, you can find those by searching online for meditation retreats or classes in Thailand. A tradition has developed in the Vipassana community of doing 10-day retreats, and there are many places where you can do such a retreat in Thailand, also here in California. So that's one way to start with that sort of meditation. But to be clear, you don't need to go to Thailand or Japan or anywhere, or even to the San Francisco Zen Center. You can meditate at home, which is where I meditate most of the time. I have a little space actually in my garage where I have a cushion that I put on the floor, and I sit and I meditate. So although I very much enjoyed my time in Thailand, it's certainly not necessary to travel so far to sit still. Susanna asks, is it helpful to start meditation with an Om chant or mantra? So the Om chant is a traditional Hindu meditation practice. Buddhism in many ways grew out of Hinduism, that the practices that the Buddha explored before he began teaching would have all been essentially Hindu practices. And so certainly many people practice that way. I have many friends who follow that practice. So it's not a traditional Buddhist practice, but it is another form of meditation that many people find very helpful. I have time only for one more. Let me just quickly scan what some of the questions are. So let's see, Sally asks this question: how do you not alter your breathing when you are paying attention to it? I mean, it's a bit of a paradox, or in Zen, what we might call a koan. And I remember when I was first learning to meditate, the very first kind of formal meditation I did was actually at the Los Angeles Zen Center. Back when Meizumi Roshi, another of the great teachers from Japan, was there and was leading practice there. And I remember them saying that you should pay attention to your breath, but not try to control it. And that just didn't seem possible. It seemed that, of course, by paying attention to it, you would inevitably change it somehow. And all I can say is that over time, I was able to pay attention to my breathing without trying to control it, without trying to breathe in any particular rhythm, to just notice it and just notice my breathing exactly as it was. Um, when you're first starting out, it may sound, again, like even a paradoxical or impossible thing, but over time, I think you'll find that you can simply notice your breathing without trying to influence it, without trying to control it. And it's a wonderful practice, and I think a powerful lesson. That brings us to the end of our time. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we will be meditating together next month. I hope many of you will join us again and every month for quite a while. So thank you, be well, and take care.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thank you for everyone who joined us. There was a question about residential stays, and I wanted to ask two questions just about Zen Center. Is Zen Center open for sits, and do you know any place that are taking residents? This question was in the chat box.
Yes, so sadly, the San Francisco Zen Center remains closed because of the pandemic. We have to be very careful because it is a small residential community with some vulnerable residents. So it is still closed to guests and visitors. And I think that is true of most of the meditation centers around this area. So I think it will probably be some time before residential practice is really possible for most of us again. So I'm sorry to say that, but it is a wonderful place, and I hope many of us can return to visiting and even staying there sometime in the near future.
Great. Oh, thank you. I know there were so many more questions, and I hope that you all join us again next month. And we have rotating different teachers, so you can get a sense of different styles for meditation teachers and meditation styles within the Zen tradition. So thank you all. Be safe out there in the world, and take this with you, please. And thank you, Dan, so much.
Thank you.